The stars shone brightly against the endless black of space as the USS Horizon cruised at standard speed. Captain Alan Wright sat in his command chair, his experienced eyes fixed on the main view screen. The ship hummed with energy and purpose as it moved toward the edge of known space. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Samantha Hill from her navigation station. Her fingers danced across the control panel with practiced ease. Captain Wright nodded. "Slow to 1/4 speed, Lieutenant. Let's be careful. Here." Commander Lisa Frost stood beside the captain's chair, her arms crossed over her chest. As executive officer, she had served with Wright for 7 years, and they understood each other without needing many words. "Those energy readings are unlike anything we've seen before," she said quietly. "What do you think, Paul?" Dr. Paul Gibson looked up from his science station, his eyes bright with excitement. "It's fascinating. The readings suggest some kind of dimensional variance. This could prove my theories about parallel space pockets." Chief Engineer Jack Monroe's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, whatever's out there is causing slight fluctuations in our engine output. Nothing dangerous yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it." The USS Horizon was Earth's pride, a deep space exploration vessel with a crew of 157. Humanity had joined the galactic community 50 years ago when aliens called the Arcturians made first contact. Since then, humans had worked hard to catch up with the older spacefaring races. "On screen, maximum magnification," ordered Wright. The view screen shifted to show what appeared to be a ripple in space, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but set against the backdrop of stars. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Gibson. "It's a naturally occurring dimensional rift. The possibility of what we might learn from this." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," cautioned Commander Frost. "Safety protocols first." Captain Wright nodded. "Launch a probe. Let's see what happens when something physical interacts with the anomaly." A small probe shot from the Horizon's forward section, its blinking lights visible as it moved toward the spatial ripple. As it entered the distortion, the probe seemed to stretch and then vanish. "Probe signals lost," reported the young communications officer, Ensign Peter Cole. Dr. Gibson's hands flew over his console. "Wait, I'm picking up the probe signal, but it's distorted, like it's coming from somewhere else." Captain Wright leaned forward. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it," Gibson replied, his forehead creased with concentration. Lieutenant Hill suddenly looked up from her station. "Captain, the anomaly is expanding. It's moving toward us." "Reverse engines, full power," ordered Wright calmly. "Get us out of here." Jack Monroe's voice came through again, this time with urgency. "Captain, engines are responding, but the gravitational pull is increasing faster than we can compensate for." The ship shuddered. On the view screen, the stars began to twist and stretch as the spatial distortion reached the horizon. "All hands, brace for impact," Commander Frost called over the ship-wide comm. The ripple enveloped the USS Horizon, and strange lights flashed through the bridge. For a moment, every crew member felt like they were being pulled in different directions at once. "Hull integrity holding," reported Monroe from engineering. "But something's happening to our—" His voice cut off. "Jack," Wright called. "Engineering, respond." The ship gave a final violent shake, and then everything went quiet. The stars on the view screen looked wrong, brighter, with colors that seemed impossible. "Where are we?" Commander Frost asked, looking around at the dazed bridge crew. Dr. Gibson stared at his readings. "Not where, Commander. When and how. The laws of physics here are different. Quantum relationships, gravitational constant, they're all shifted." Lieutenant Hill tried to get a bearing. "No recognized star patterns, Captain. I can't determine our position." "Communications." Wright turned to Ensign Cole. "Any contact? With Space Command?" Cole shook his head. "Nothing, sir. I can't even find standard emergency channels." Wright stood up and walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at the strange stars. "Send out a general distress call on all frequencies. Then get me a full damage report." As the crew carried out his orders, Wright exchanged a look with Commander Frost. They both knew what this meant. They were lost, possibly farther from home than any human had ever been. Miles away in normal space, The distortion collapsed in on itself, leaving no trace of the horizon. 6 hours later, Arcturian vessels responded to Earth's distress call and arrived at the coordinates. Their advanced sensors swept the area, finding nothing but normal space. "Impossible," said the Arcturian commander to his science officer. "A ship that size cannot simply vanish." But it had. Earth's Space Command launched the largest search operation in human history. Commander Catherine Rodriguez led the effort, using every available ship and calling in favors from alien allies. For 6 months, they searched without finding a single clue. In her office on the moon base, Rodriguez stared at the holographic display showing the search patterns they had covered. Captain Wright had been her mentor at the academy. The thought of declaring him and his crew dead made her stomach turn. Admiral John Harris entered the office, his face grim. "Catherine, it's been 6 months. We've used resources we can't spare, and the Arcturians are pulling their ships back. We can't give up on them," she insisted, her voice tight. "We're not giving up," said Harris softly. "But we need to accept the possibility that they're gone. The families deserve closure." Rodriguez closed her eyes briefly. "I'll make the announcement tomorrow." The next day she stood before cameras and the families of the Horizon crew. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her face composed, though her eyes revealed her pain. After exhaustive search efforts, Space Command has found no trace of the USS Horizon or its crew. While we cannot explain what happened, we must now presume that the ship and all hands have been lost. Captain Alan Wright and his crew knew the risks of deep space exploration, but they went forward in humanity's quest for knowledge and understanding. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. Unknown to everyone on Earth, the USS Horizon was not destroyed. In the strange dimension now surrounding them, Captain Wright gathered his senior officers in the conference room. "We're alive, and the ship is largely intact," he told them. "That means we have a chance. Dr. Gibson, what can you tell us about where we are?" Gibson looked both terrified and thrilled. "Captain, we've entered what I can only describe as a pocket dimension, a space with its own physical laws. Time itself moves differently here. And there's something else." He paused, looking at the readings on his tablet. "There are energy signatures out there. Artificial ones." "You mean there's someone else here?" asked Commander Frost. "Or something," Gibson replied. "And based on these readings, they've been here for a very, very long time." Captain Wright looked around at his officers, the people he trusted most in the universe. "Then we do what we've always done. We explore, we learn, and we find a way home." Lieutenant Hill, "Set a course for the nearest energy signature. Whatever's out there, it's our best chance of understanding this place." As the Horizon moved deeper into the strange dimension, none of the crew realized that their journey had only just begun, and that both they and their ship would be forever changed by what they would encounter. 50 years passed in the Milky Way galaxy. Earth had grown stronger with colonies on Mars, Venus, and several moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Humans had built bigger ships and made new friends among the stars, yet they remained small compared to ancient alien races like the Arcturians, who had traveled space for thousands of years. Ambassador Henry Walsh stood at the large window in the Galactic Council chamber. At 68 years old, he had spent 30 years speaking for Earth. Today, his job was harder than ever before. "The Void Heralds have destroyed 3 more systems," he said to the gathered aliens. "The outer colony of New Boston is gone. 4 million humans dead." The room stayed quiet. Each representative knew their worlds faced the same threat. "They are not like us," said Krell, the tall, blue-skinned Arcturian leader. "They do not want land or power. They only consume and move on." The Void Heralds had appeared 2 years ago. They looked like dark ships that moved like liquid shadow. When they came to a world, all life died. Plants, animals, people, all turned to dust. The planets remained, but as dead, empty shells. "They follow a pattern," said Walsh. "They move from the outer rim toward the center of the galaxy. If we don't stop them, they will reach Earth in 8 months, and then Arctur, and then everything else." On the main fleet ship of Earth's Space Forces, Fleet Admiral Olivia Peters studied battle plans. Her gray hair was cut short, and her face showed the stress of many lost battles. "The Void Heralds adapt too quickly," she told her aide, Captain Frank Burton. "Each time we find a weapon that hurts them, they change to block it. It's like they learn from every shot we fire." "How do we fight something like that?" asked Burton. Admiral Peters had no answer. 3 days later, the combined fleet of 7 alien races gathered near the Sirius star system. 500 ships formed a defensive line. The Void Heralds were coming, and Sirius would be where the galaxy made its stand. Admiral Peters stood on the bridge of the USS Guardian, Earth's newest and strongest battleship. "All ships report ready," said Captain Burton. "Then we wait," said Peters. They did not wait long. The space in front of them seemed to tear open, and 12 large black shapes emerged. They looked like ships but moved like living things, flowing and changing shape as they advanced. "All ships fire main weapons," ordered Peters. The fleet fired as one. Energy beams and missiles hit the black ships. For a moment, the Void Herald seemed to slow down. "Keep firing," shouted Peters. But the black ships began to move again. Where the weapons hit them, their surfaces changed to absorb the energy. They advanced toward the fleet, unstoppable. "They've adapted again," said Burton, his voice tight with fear. The Void Heralds reached the first line of ships. When they touched a ship, the metal seemed to age and rust in seconds. Then the ship crumbled to dust, crew and all. "Fall back to position 2, ordered Peters. But she knew it would not help. The Void Heralds were too strong, too alien to fight. As the fleet retreated, sensors picked up something new. A spatial tear like the one the Void Heralds had used opened behind the fleet. "Another attack from behind?" asked Burton. Peters watched the screen. "No, this is different." A single ship emerged from the tear. It looked almost human in design, but strange. Its hull seemed to flow and shift like liquid metal. It moved with impossible speed and grace. "Identity unknown," reported the sensor. "Officer." "Wait, I'm getting a signal. It's an Earth frequency, but very old." "Put it through," ordered Peters. A voice came through the speakers, clear and confident. "This is Captain Wright of the USS Horizon. We've returned, and we bring solutions." Peters stared at the screen. Everyone knew the story of the Horizon. The ship lost 50 years ago while exploring an anomaly. It was taught in history classes as a lesson about the dangers of space. "Impossible," she whispered. The strange ship, the Horizon, moved toward the Void Heralds. It fired no weapons. Instead, it released a wave of glowing energy that spread out in all directions. When this energy touched the Void Heralds, they froze in place. "What is happening?" asked Burton. "I don't know," said Peters, "but I think we just got help." The Horizon opened another communication channel, this time with video. The bridge crew of the Guardian saw the face of a man who looked both human and not. Captain Alan Wright's skin had a slight metallic sheen. His eyes reflected light strangely, but he spoke like a human. "Admiral, I realize this is a shock. To us, only 3 years have passed in what you call the Crucible dimension. Time flows differently there. We learned much from the beings we found inside, beings who had fled there long ago to escape the same enemy you now face." "The Void Heralds," said Peters. Wright nodded. "They are ancient. They have destroyed advanced life in this galaxy many times before. They are why no civilization has records older than 50,000 years. They come, they destroy, they leave, and then life begins again." "Why?" asked Peters. "That's complicated," said Wright, "but we found a way to fight them. My crew and I have changed during our time in the Crucible. We adapted to survive." As if to demonstrate, Wright raised his hand. His fingers seemed to melt and reform, becoming like living metal tools. "We can help you," he said, "but first we need to get to Earth. There's much to explain and not much time." 3 days later, the changed Horizon sat in orbit around Earth's moon. Leaders from Earth and other worlds gathered to meet the returned crew. They were taken to a large meeting room inside the lunar base. Everyone fell quiet when Captain Wright and his senior officers entered. They looked human at first glance, but the differences were clear up close. Commander Frost's skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Dr. Gibson moved with strange, too precise motions. Lieutenant Hill's eyes changed color as she looked around the room. "Thank you for meeting with us," said Wright. "I know we must seem different." Ambassador Walsh stepped forward. "Captain, your return is remarkable, but we need to understand what happened to you and your crew." Wright smiled, but it looked practiced, as if he had to remember how. "In the Crucible, we encountered the remnants of ancient civilizations that had fled there to escape the Void Heralds. We learned that the Heralds are not just destroying worlds, they're working toward something larger." "What do you mean?" asked Admiral Peters. Lieutenant Hill spoke up, her voice musical and strange. "They're heading for the galactic core. When they reach it, they'll trigger a reaction that will sterilize most of the galaxy. They've done it before many times." The room erupted in questions and shouts. Wright raised his hand and everyone fell silent, not by choice, but as if compelled. "We don't have time for fear," he said. "We have knowledge that can help. We have technology that can fight them. But most importantly, we understand what they want and how to stop them." Ambassador Walsh looked at the changed humans with both hope and fear. "And what is it they want, Captain?" Wright's eyes seemed to look through Walsh, seeing something far beyond. "Evolution, challenge, worthy successors. They are testing us all." Outside, Earth shone blue and beautiful against the blackness of space, unaware that its fate now rested with these returned children who were no longer entirely human. "The question," said Wright, "is whether humanity and its allies are ready to become what the galaxy needs them to be." Dr. Nicole Ward could not stop staring at the blood sample under her microscope. As Earth's leading expert on alien biology, she had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. "Your cells are no longer fully human," she said to Dr. Paul Gibson, who sat calmly across from her in the lab. "They have metal components that seem to be alive." Gibson smiled. "Yes. In the Crucible, we had to change to survive. The air there was toxic to human lungs. The radiation would have killed us in days." "So you adapted?" asked Ward. "With help," said Gibson. "The refugees in the Crucible had technology designed to speed up evolution. They used it to survive when they first arrived. We had no choice but to use it too." Ward looked again at the sample. The blood cells moved with purpose, not like normal human blood. "These aren't random changes. Your body seems designed to counter the Void Heralds." Gibson's eyes glowed slightly. "Very observant, Doctor. The refugees told us the Heralds have appeared many times before. The technology that changed us was created long ago to fight them." In another part of the lunar base, Captain Wright showed Admiral Peters and Ambassador Walsh the inside of the USS Horizon. The ship no longer had normal corridors and rooms. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently. In places they were transparent, showing the stars outside. "The ship merged with us," explained Wright. "It's part of our nervous system now. We feel what it feels. It moves as we think." Admiral Peters touched a wall carefully. "Is it conscious?" "In a way," said Wright, "but not like us. More like an extension of our minds." They reached what had once been the engine room. Now it held a glowing core of energy that shifted between many colors. "This is how we travel," said Wright. "We don't just move through space. We slip between dimensions. The Void Heralds can't track us." "How did you find us again after 50 years?" asked Walsh. "Lieutenant Hill can sense dimensional weak points," said Wright. "She guided us back when we felt the Heralds arrive in this galaxy." In the security center of the lunar base, Lieutenant Ben Miller watched the strange visitors. With suspicion, as Earth's top intelligence officer, it was his job to look for threats, and the changed Horizon crew worried him. "They're too different," he told his assistant, Susan Gray. "How do we know these are even the same people who left 50 years ago?" "Their DNA matches the old records," said Susan. "At least the parts that are still human." Miller frowned. And the parts that aren't human? What are those? They could be controlled by something from that crucible place. The door opened, and Commander Lisa Frost walked in. Her movements were too smooth, as if gravity affected her differently. "Your concerns are understandable, Lieutenant Miller," she said. Her hearing was clearly much better than a normal human's. "In your position, I would feel the same." Miller stood straighter. "Then you understand why we need to be careful." Frost nodded. "Of course. But time is short. The Void Heralds are moving faster now. They sense that we have returned." 2 days later, the leaders of Earth and its allies gathered in the main meeting hall. Chief Engineer Jack Monroe stood in the center, his hands moving through the air as if shaping something invisible. "This is what the Heralds are planning," he said. The air around him changed, showing a map of the galaxy. Small red dots moved toward the bright center. "They're converging on the galactic core," said Monroe. "When enough of them gather there, they'll trigger a chain reaction in the supermassive black hole." The map showed waves of energy spreading out from the center, washing over thousands of star systems. "The wave will sterilize most planets," said Monroe. "Not destroy them, but kill all advanced life. Only the simplest organisms will survive." "Why would they do this?" asked the Arctarian leader, Krell. "It's a reset," explained Commander Frost. "They believe advanced civilizations follow predictable patterns. Eventually, they all create technologies that threaten the fabric of space-time. The Heralds prevent this by periodically setting evolution back to start over." "How many times has this happened?" asked Walsh. "Millions," said Captain Wright, stepping forward. "The cycle repeats roughly every 50,000 years. No civilization remembers the previous cycle because all records are destroyed." "How do we stop them?" asked Admiral Peters. "If they've done this for millions of years, can they even be defeated?" "Not defeated," said Wright. "Convinced." Lieutenant Hill joined Wright at the center of the room. Her eyes swirled with colors as she spoke. "The Heralds aren't mindless destroyers," she said. "They're looking for something specific. A civilization that can break the pattern, one that can be trusted with the knowledge of previous cycles without repeating their mistakes." "And you think that's us?" asked Krell with doubt in his voice. "Not any single species," said Wright. "But together, yes. The refugees in the Crucible taught us that the Heralds test civilizations. If we demonstrate that we're different, they might listen." "How do we do that?" asked Walsh. Wright looked at his crew members, then back at the leaders. "We need to show them something they've never seen before. True cooperation across species. Not just fighting together, but thinking together." He placed his hand on the table, and it seemed to melt partly into the surface. "Monroe has developed a technology that can temporarily link minds. It would allow representatives from each species to share thoughts directly with the Heralds." The room grew quiet as everyone considered this idea. "Is it safe?" asked Admiral Peters. "No," said Wright honestly. "Nothing about this is safe, but it's our only chance." Miller stood up from his seat. "This could be exactly what they want. For all we know, these changed humans are working for the Heralds, trying to get us to lower our mental defenses." Walsh looked at Wright. "Is that possible?" Wright did not get angry at the accusation. "It's a reasonable concern. That's why we'll test the link first, just among volunteers. You can judge for yourselves if we have hidden plans." Later that day, Miller watched as Dr. Ward placed special devices on the temples of 5 volunteers, 1 human, 1 Arctarian, and 3 from other allied species. Captain Wright and Lieutenant Hill wore similar devices. "The link will be light at first," explained Wright. "Just surface thoughts and feelings." The devices activated with a soft glow. The volunteers gasped as they felt each other's minds. I can feel what the Arctarian feels," said the human volunteer, a young diplomat named Eric Lee. "The colors are so different through his eyes." Krell watched closely. "What are they experiencing?" "Truth," said Wright simply. "The one thing the Heralds value above all else is truth. No species can lie about itself when thoughts are shared directly." Miller still had doubts, but seeing the wonder on the faces of the volunteers made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, the changed humans really had found a way to save them all. Outside in the darkness of space, sensors detected new Void Herald ships approaching. The final test was coming soon, whether they were ready or not. The combined fleet gathered at the Perseus Arm Gateway, the last defensible position before the Void Heralds could reach the core systems. 700 ships from 12 different species formed a half-circle around the spatial passage. At the center of the formation floated the USS Horizon, its living metal hull shifting and flowing like liquid silver. On the command deck of the Earth flagship USS Guardian, Admiral Peters watched the final preparations. Lieutenant Miller stood beside her, still worried about trusting the changed humans. "The Heralds will be here in 6 hours," said Admiral Peters. "All ships report ready." "And if Wright's plan fails?" asked Miller. Peters looked at him with tired eyes. "Then we fight until we can't." Aboard the Horizon, Captain Wright connected his nervous system directly to the ship. His consciousness expanded, feeling every part of the vessel as if it were his own body. The other crew members did the same, each linking to their specialized systems. "Jack, how's the dimensional field generator?" Wright asked. Chief Engineer Monroe's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. In this state, they didn't need speakers to communicate. "Ready," said Monroe. "If this works, we can create a pocket dimension that will trap the Heralds long enough for Hill to establish the mental link." Lieutenant Hill floated in a special chamber filled with glowing liquid. Her mind was the key to Wright's plan. In the Crucible, she had developed the ability to see and move through dimensions. Now she would use that power to touch the minds of the Void Heralds. "I can feel them coming," she said. "They're angry. They know we're different." Dr. Gibson monitored the mind link system. "The volunteers are ready. Their minds are synchronized with ours." In a protected section of the Horizon, 24 beings from different species sat in circle, connected by thin wires to their temples. Among them was Ambassador Walsh, who had insisted on joining despite the risk. "We need to show the Heralds that our leaders are willing to risk themselves," he had argued. "Not just send others to do it." The Arcturian leader Krell had agreed, joining the circle next to Walsh. Even Lieutenant Miller had volunteered, still suspicious but unwilling to let others take a risk he wouldn't. "Remember," Wright's voice came to all of them, "when the link activates, don't fight it. Let your thoughts flow naturally. The Heralds will see everything, your fears, your hopes, your darkest thoughts. That's what they need to see, the truth of who we are." Space seemed to tear open as the first Void Herald ships appeared. They were larger than before, their black surfaces absorbing all light around them. "They've evolved too," whispered Commander Frost. "All ships hold position," ordered Admiral Peters from the Guardian. "Wait for the Horizon to make the first move." The Void Heralds advanced slowly, as if studying the fleet before them. Then, without warning, they accelerated, moving faster than seemed possible. "Now, Jack," called Wright. Monroe activated the dimensional field generator. A wave of glowing energy expanded from the Horizon, washing over the Herald ships. They slowed, caught in the field where physics itself had been altered. "They're fighting it," said Monroe, his voice strained with effort. "I can't hold them long." "Long enough," said Wright. "Lisa, activate defense systems. Keep them busy while Hill establishes contact." The Horizon fired streams of energy at the nearest Herald ship. Unlike conventional weapons, these beams didn't try to destroy the target. Instead, they interfered with the Herald's ability to adapt. "Hill, now," ordered Wright. In her chamber, Lieutenant Hill's eyes opened wide, glowing with inner light. Her consciousness stretched out, searching for the minds behind the Void Herald ships. "I feel them," she whispered. "So old, so tired." In the circle of volunteers, the mind link activated. Ambassador Walsh gasped as his awareness expanded. Suddenly, he could feel Krell's ancient memories, Miller's suspicions, and the thoughts of all the other volunteers. Their minds merged into something new, not losing their individuality, but becoming part of a greater whole. And then they felt something else, vast, cold, and incomprehensibly old. The consciousness of the Void Heralds touched theirs. Images flashed through their shared mind, civilizations rising and falling, technologies growing too powerful, tearing apart space itself, releasing horrors from between dimensions. The heralds had seen it happen countless times before. We are the guardians, came a thought that wasn't words but pure meaning. We maintain the cycle. We preserve the galaxy. You resist like all others before you. Through Hill's connection, Captain Wright projected his own thoughts toward the ancient beings. We are not like those who came before. We have found another way. The combined consciousness of the volunteers flowed through the link, showing the heralds how their different species had learned to work together, how they had overcome ancient hatreds and fears. But the heralds were not convinced. All say this. All fail the test. Wright felt the connection weakening. The heralds were pulling away, preparing to continue their attack. Show them, Wright told Hill. Show them what we found in the crucible. Hill opened her mind completely, revealing the knowledge they had gained from the refugees in the crucible dimension, beings who had escaped previous cycles and preserved the wisdom of countless fallen civilizations. The heralds paused, surprised. You have spoken with the escaped ones? Yes, thought Wright. And we learned why you do this. You aren't destroyers. You're looking for successors, species worthy of joining you as guardians of the cycle. For a moment, there was silence in the mental link. Then the herald's thoughts returned stronger than before. Prove your worth. Show us what makes you different. Ambassador Walsh felt himself being examined by the ancient consciousness. His whole life, his hopes and fears for humanity, his belief that different species could work together, all laid bare. Lieutenant Miller's suspicions were revealed too, but also his willingness to risk himself for others despite his doubts. Creel's ancient wisdom and the perspectives of all the other volunteers flowed through the link. The Void Heralds absorbed it all, judging them. Interesting, came their thought. You fight not to destroy us, but to join us. This is new. On the Guardian's bridge, Admiral Peters watched as the Void Herald ship stopped their advance. They hung in space, perfectly still. What's happening? She asked. No one had an answer. All they could do was wait and hope that Wright's desperate plan was working. Inside the mental link, the volunteers felt the Herald's decision forming. Would they be found worthy, or would the cycle continue as it had for millions of years? The Herald's final test was beginning. Inside the mental connection, time seemed to stand still. Ambassador Walsh could feel the ancient minds of the Void Heralds moving through his memories, his hopes, his fears. They did the same with each volunteer. It felt like being turned inside out. Every secret laid bare. They are judging us, thought Krell, his Arctarian mind touching Walsh's human one. Not just us, came Lieutenant Miller's thought. All our species, through us. Captain Wright guided the connection, his evolved mind serving as a bridge between the volunteers and the ancient beings. Show them everything, he urged. No secrets, no fear. The Void Herald's consciousness was vast and cold, like a deep ocean. Their thoughts came not in words but in images and feelings. They showed the gathered minds what had happened before, civilizations rising, developing technology that tore the fabric of reality, releasing horrors from between dimensions. The cycle of destruction and rebirth had repeated countless times. Always the same pattern, the heralds communicated. Always the same end. Through Wright, the volunteers sent back their own message. Images of cooperation between different species solving problems together that none could solve alone. We can be different, Wright projected. Not one species but many working as one. The heralds seemed doubtful. Others claimed this. All failed when tested. Then test us now, challenged Wright. The mental link suddenly expanded. Every crew, member on every ship in the combined fleet felt their minds touched by the connection. Thousands of beings from dozens of species found themselves part of something greater. Fear came first, then wonder. Admiral Peters gripped her chair on the Guardian's bridge as she felt other minds touch hers. What's happening? She whispered. Then she understood. She could feel the thoughts of the Arctarian ship commander nearest her vessel. She could sense the emotions of the alien engineers, the human navigators, the fears and hopes of thousands. Across the fleet, The same thing was happening. For the first time in galactic history, the minds of 12 different species joined together. In a single shared consciousness, the Void Heralds observed this connection, probing it for weakness or falsehood. They found fear, yes, and doubt, but also determination and hope. Interesting, they communicated. You do not lose yourselves in the joining. Through the link, Lieutenant Hill showed the Heralds what she had learned in the Crucible, how beings could share thoughts while maintaining their unique perspectives. Unity without sameness. The Heralds considered this. For beings who had existed for millions of years, a few minutes of thought were nothing. The fleet waited, frozen in time by the mental connection. Finally, the ancient consciousness reached a decision. You are not ready to replace us, the Heralds communicated, but you may be ready to join us. Captain Wright felt their meaning clearly. You want some of us to become like you, to help maintain the cycle? Yes, guardians, watchers, preventing the mistakes of the past, guiding evolution toward better paths. The implications were enormous. Wright shared this understanding with all connected minds. The Heralds weren't asking for submission, they were offering partnership. After millions of years, they had found species worthy of sharing their burden. Ambassador Walsh thought of Earth, of humanity's short history among the stars. We're so young compared to you. How can we be ready? The Herald's answer came as a series of images. The USS Horizon entering the Crucible, adapting, evolving, returning changed but still human at its core. You bridge worlds. You adapt but remain. This is rare. This has value. The volunteers discussed through the mental link, sharing thoughts faster than words could express. The offer was clear. Some would need to change to evolve as Wright's crew had done, becoming something beyond their original species. They would join the Heralds as guardians of the galaxy's evolution, preventing civilizations from destroying themselves, guiding them toward cooperation rather than conflict. I volunteer, thought Wright. My crew and I are already changed. We can be the first. Not alone, came Krell's thought. Arctarians must join too. This burden should be shared. Others agreed. From each species, volunteers stepped forward in the mental space. Lieutenant Miller, who had doubted the changed humans from the beginning, made his decision. I'll go too. Someone needs to keep an eye on you all. His mental tone carried not suspicion now, but respect. The Heralds accepted this offer. The cycle will change, not end, but change. Evolution will continue but guided. Cooperation will be fostered. Slowly, the mental connection began to fade. Thousands of minds returned to their own thoughts, forever changed by what they had experienced. On the bridge of the Guardian, Admiral Peters took a deep breath as her mind became her own again. The view screen showed the Void Herald ships moving away from the fleet, no longer threatening. They're leaving, said her first officer in disbelief. Not leaving, said Peters. Waiting. They're giving us time to prepare. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Wright disconnected from the ship's systems. His crew gathered around him, knowing what their decision meant. Are you sure about this? Asked Commander Frost. Wright nodded. We've been preparing for this since the Crucible. We're ready. Over the next 3 weeks, an extraordinary transfer of knowledge took place. The Void Heralds shared technology and understanding with the combined fleet. The volunteers who had agreed to join them prepared for transformation. On the final day, 500 beings from 12 species gathered in a great hall on Earth's moon. They would be the first generation of new guardians. Captain Wright and his crew stood at their head. Ambassador Walsh addressed them. You make this sacrifice for all our worlds. You will change in ways we cannot imagine. You may not return for centuries, if ever. We will remember you. Admiral Peters presented Captain Wright with a new insignia, a symbol combining elements from all 12 species. This is not an ending, she said. It's an evolution. When the ceremony ended, the volunteers boarded special ships that would take them to the place of transformation. The USS Horizon led the way, its living metal hull glowing with new energy. Lieutenant Miller stood at a viewport on the horizon, watching Earth grow smaller. "Do you think we'll see home again?" he asked Dr. Gibson. Gibson's partly mechanical eyes focused on distant stars. "Home will change. We will change. But yes, I think we'll return someday." As the ships approached the waiting heralds, Captain Wright sent one final message to the worlds they were leaving. "We were never meant to conquer the stars, but to connect them. Today, humanity and its allies take their place as guardians of life's great journey. Look to the stars and know that we watch over you." The ships vanished into a dimensional rift, leaving the galaxy changed forever. The cycle that had repeated for millions of years would continue, but with a new purpose, not to reset civilization, but to guide it toward something greater. And in the darkness between stars, new guardians began their eternal watch.